More sports talk is just noise, rehashed stats and the same tired headlines. Tonight we're doing something different. We're stripping back the layers of a multi-billion-dollar machine from the locker room to the suite seat, and from the gambling scandals rocking collegiate sports to the high-stake equity plays on Wall Street. Cut through the statistics, I'm joined by LinkedIn sports editor John Tomase. This isn't just a guest appearance, it's a collision of worlds that doesn't exist anywhere else. We're bridging the gap between institutional knowledge and the brutal realities of professional and insider editorial roadmap for building true career capital. Whether you're here for the breakdown of the Knicks market influence, or you're looking at the master the algorithm, which we don't have the secret, and build a premium digital signal, we're auditing all that. John, thanks for hopping on, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Marcus. Thanks for having me. That's quite the intro. I'm ready to bridge everything you were just talking about.
Exactly. Excellent. Excellent. And just so folks know, just to let you know where we're going today, we will be covering the NBA Finals, the World Cup. We're going to talk about the NILs in Major League Baseball. AI.com, I have an interesting thought on Bobby Bonilla, how that contract can play out for athletes nowadays. Look at the broke profile. That was a big thing that I wrote about in the Wall Street South Journal. And then obviously John can tell us about being the LinkedIn sports editor, some Q&A. We'll wait a couple minutes here for some more people to hop in. John, just tell us a little bit about yourself, John, before we get started.
Sure thing. So, born and raised in Boston. I'm one of those people who never left. I went to college here. I grew up reading the great sports pages here: Boston Globe, Boston Herald, guys like Dan Shaughnessy and Bob Ryan and Ron Borges. And you go down Tim Horgan, like you go down the list. Those guys are actually my heroes. I grew up kind of in the 80s during the Bird era. So, Celtics were my team growing up. And I played basketball in high school. I played Little League as a kid. I wasn't great at any of them, but I loved playing sports. But I always knew I was going to end up as a sports writer. In third grade, I had an elementary school teacher. We had to write on a little piece of paper, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, most kids wrote fireman or whatever. And I wrote sports writer. So I knew, like, in third grade, that's what I wanted to be. And that's what I was able to do for virtually my whole career here. I wrote for a paper in Massachusetts called the Lawrence Eagle Tribune. I covered the Red Sox when they won the World Series in 2004. I moved to the Boston Herald, where I covered the Patriots and the Red Sox. I went to WEEI, sports radio station, so I hosted talk shows there. Still covered all the teams. I was there when the Sox won in '04 and '13 and '18, when the Patriots won in '05, the Patriots' perfect season in '07 that didn't end so well. Celtics when they won in '08, I was there for that. I was in LA when they had their incredible comeback in game 5 or game 4. No, game 4, I want to say. Um, Great experience for me. I'd always been somebody who followed the business stuff anyway. And now to sort of mix these worlds with LinkedIn launching a sports product, it's been a lot of fun, to look at these from the perspective of the business side and obviously bringing my expertise as someone who's covered all these teams and games and, has been in locker rooms and had relationships with players and executives and that kind of stuff. I think I have a pretty good handle on both sides of it. And, seeing the business world, your world, and how it intersects with sports has been really fascinating for me.
Excellent. So you said that's a pretty robust career as well. You said LinkedIn is launching an initiative with their sports uh, section. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, we're just if you look around, there's a lot of different sites that are leaning into sports. Just today, Time Magazine came out. They always have the Time 100, the 100 most influential people in the world. Well, they just came out with their first, the Time Sports 100. So it's the 100 most influential sports figures in the world. Yahoo, if you look at them, they just launched a whole business section. So I think a lot of people are looking at sports as a way to capture attention. Business. Oh, and here we go. I was here for this.
Sorry.
Oh, you can let
keep
that. You
talking.
can absolutely let that play if you like.
I'm going to let it play. Don't you worry. Keep talking.
Yeah. So anyway, LinkedIn is trying out sports. We are pushing more sports coverage to see if we can expand our readership. I think that's how everybody looks at sports right now. And sports business is such a huge thing. A lot of it is laid out in the list that you put up to start this episode between NIL, between labor stuff in baseball, between franchise relocation, between players and their personal brands, which have never been bigger, with social media, with all this stuff. There's just so many ways where sports and business really are intersecting. And so we're trying to get in on that as well.
Very cool, very cool. That's something we're definitely gonna come back to a little bit later on. We go into the LinkedIn section where we can ask some questions. Whether people are asking them or not, I definitely have some questions for you.
Sure thing.
I do want to take you back. So John doesn't know about any of these clips I'm gonna play. So we're gonna play this one right here. I want you to think. Because John and I have had conversations offline about he's a Red Sox fan, I'm a Yankees fan. He's he's a Patriots fan, I'm a Raiders fan, and a Panthers fan, but there were no Panthers first. So it's pretty much, diverse, but we mesh here. So take a second. I want you to listen to this and then tell me where you were when both of these things happened.
Back to Folk. Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are...
Direct snap to Brady. Standing in there. Looks to the left, loses the football. It's on the ground, and let's see if it's a fumble or a pass attempt. I believe it's going to be called a fumble. It is. And the Oakland Raiders recovered.
We didn't have Woodson blocked, and really Tom should have read that and gotten rid of the ball. He was looking on the other side of the field. Woodson stripped him.
All of New England, all of the nation saw Woodson coming. The Raiders are 143 away from going back to the AFC Championship game.
I couldn't believe that, I fumbled the ball to lose the game.
That part. The last thing he said, right?
Truth right there. So we'll start with the Red Sox. So I was there in St. Louis in '04 when they won. The moment they won, however, never saw it. We were all on our way down because you have to be down on the field in the clubhouse when the game ends. You can't sit in the press box and then make it down for all that stuff through the rush of fans and all of that. So oftentimes you go down early. So I heard that. I think I heard that over a TV monitor as I was lined up outside the Red Sox clubhouse because we knew they had won. So we had to get in there. So that's one of those, it's kind of funny. You're there, but you don't see it. I had a similar experience when the Patriots won the Super Bowl in '05 against Carolina. Again, see the end of that game because I was down trying to get in to the locker room. So that's how that goes. As far as the Snow Bowl game, now this is a famously painful moment for Raiders fans like Marcus because Tom Brady clearly fumbled. And if you're unfamiliar with that play, there was a very arcane rule that the NFL did away with after this game. But unfortunately for Marcus, and fortunately for the Patriots dynasty, it was in play. It was ruled that Brady was tucking the football instead of passing it, so therefore it couldn't be a fumble, which was just an insane rule then and now. Every time you see it, you can't believe it happened. I was working in my office that night. We had separate Patriots writers, so I was helping lay out the section. I was watching that game on TV, and I was as dumbfounded as everyone else.
Yeah, you had to be disgusted when you saw that play. Like, you had to think like, oh, we just lost the game. Because I saw that play, the Brady play, and I was like, exactly what they all said. That's a fumble. Even when they reviewed it, it's like when they had the note card that they stuck down. That was against the Raiders too, if I remember correctly. You remember the official stuck the note card down in between to see if it was a first down on Sunday Night Football?
Yep.
I was against the Raiders too, so there's a conspiracy theory. Hopefully.
Well, I will say real quick, this goes back before either of our times, but in the '70s, the Patriots lost a playoff game a year they probably would have won the Super Bowl. I think it was 1976 because of a phantom roughing the passer call on Sugar Bear Hamilton against Ken Stabler. And Patriots fans were incensed about that call. It was every bit as bad, and it cost the Patriots a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So maybe the universe evened out right there with the tuck rule.
I think that's some revisionist history right there up in Boston. So that's why I'm going to take that as like, come on, man. But so going back from that to where we are in modern sports, right? People are like, y'all keep reminiscing. The finals, right? We're in the NHL Finals are 2-1. The NBA Finals are 2-1 right now. We got the NHL Game 4 coming off tonight. Don't worry, folks. We'll have you off in time to check out the game. But the way these teams are constructed, particularly in the NBA, is you have the Knicks, where Jalen Brunson took a pay cut, essentially bet on himself, but took a pay cut. And then you have the Spurs, but they're still like the second largest payroll. And then you have the Spurs, who are a much smaller payroll, and building out. How does that compare to the Boston teams? Because I remember the Brady took a pay cut with the Patriots, but the Red Sox, they went all in like the Yankees, correct?
Oh yeah. The Red Sox, not anymore, and that's why they're in last place. They used to be huge spenders. They signed Manny Ramirez. They traded for Pedro Martinez and extended him. They gave Nomar Garciaparra kind of a big contract before they traded him, but they had just a parade. Josh Beckett, you go through all of the big names that they signed. These NBA teams are kind of fascinating how they're built. The Spurs are built through the draft mainly, and they're super young, as we know. And they hit the jackpot on the lottery, and they got Wemby. If Wembenyama's not on this team, they're nowhere near the finals, but that's how the NBA works. You get the best player. I think the way the Knicks did it is more interesting, honestly, because Jalen Brunson was Luka's backup in Dallas. And even though he signed for 100 and whatever million, and you can say it was below market, nobody he's turned out to be a better winner than Luka. He's not a better player, but if you ask me which guy I'd rather have on my team, it's Brunson. Luka doesn't play defense. His teams don't really win in the postseason outside of one run to the finals where the Celtics did handle them. So I think the Brunson thing, you got to give the Knicks a huge amount of credit for that. And then also the way the Knicks looked at their roster and said at the time, we need to compete with Boston. Boston just won a title. They've got Brown and Tatum, so they have these two great athletic wing players. How do we defend that? They go out and get Mikal Bridges, great defender, and a similar kind of player, a better scorer probably before he got to New York than he's been with New York, but still like a highly respected player. You get OG Anunoby, somebody who's won a title in Toronto, again, is somebody who can defend multiple positions, and you make the Cat trade, which I kind of thought Karl Anthony Towns, I'm like, he's a little soft. He's a big guy who shoots threes, but you look at what he has transformed himself into with this Knicks team, pushing Wemby around the first two games, really being that rugged, physical presence that I don't know we necessarily associated with his game. So I give the Knicks a ton of credit for how they have put this thing together. They didn't do it by just winning the lottery, and landing the top pick. They really targeted the right pieces, made smart deals, even the Alvarado deal. Like that's an under the radar one, but just a pest of a player, a good defender. So I really like how the Knicks put this roster together.
Yeah, it's very surprising to see the Knicks in the finals, I think, but they've definitely ground their way up there. They had to grind out. They've lost in playoff series, and kind of what you've seen growing up, like you and I. You saw the Bulls had to get over the Pistons had to get over the Celtics, etc. And then you have the Spurs, who have a culture and franchise that's ingrained in them, from Greg Popovich, who's no longer the coach, down to even Tim Duncan coming and helping players, down there in San Antonio. I think another big thing with Jalen Brunson, I watched an interview with him, and he was speaking on how they were negotiating in Dallas, right? So they were negotiating. It was about to be the trade deadline. Luka got hurt, or Luka didn't get hurt, but he told them right before that he didn't want to negotiate during the season. So like right then, somewhere in the season, they came to him with like a $44 million offer. No, he said he would take the $44 million offer, which would have been like the max for him at that point. But they said, we won't wait. The Mavericks have quite the history. Let's talk about that in a second. But right, so he said, okay, we're not going to negotiate during the season. They get into the season. He starts playing well. Luka gets hurt. As you said, I don't know if you recall, they have that playoff run. And he's like, yeah, I think my market value has changed.
Yep.
Then after that, Mark Cuban's he did an interview. We can pay him the most money. Jalen Brunson says he didn't hear anything from them. It was crickets. So what's going on with Dallas? Like how bad Luka, AD?
Yeah, so I mean, they canned Nico Harrison, so that's part of trying to fix that. They got lucky with the ping pong balls and landed Cooper Flagg, so they go right from Luka to Cooper, who had an amazing rookie season. He's from my neck of the woods in Maine, so we've been hearing about him for a while, and all I knew about him was that, he's going to be one of these guys who gets to the NBA, and he's going to be pretty good at everything. He's a good defender. He's a good passer. He's an okay shooter. He's an okay scorer. And he gets into the NBA, and he's got like a grown man's game. I mean, you see him dunking on guys all year. So they've changed their leadership. They brought in, I'm blanking on his name, from Toronto, the guy who built the Raptors into a champion. Oh, I'm sorry. It'll come to me in a second.
His
Anyway,
name's like Uzo. I know who you're talking about.
Usai, I'm going to say his name wrong, so I don't want to say his name wrong. But somebody who is highly respected in the NBA, built a winner, made a gutsy trade to get Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. He's now in charge of Dallas, so I think they're probably on the upswing. They have a real basketball boss there now, and it'll be interesting to see because they're still going to have high draft picks, and at some point, people are probably going to want to play with Cooper Flag. So I think before too long, I think the Mavs will be back. And they just got rid of Jason Kidd as well, so they can sort of start fresh from the coaching perspective as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to fire your coach after you just had the Rookie of the Year and the #1 draft pick, and your coach is a point guard, one of the all-time great point guards.
I
And
know, exactly. It is amazing. And somebody who should really understand better than anyone exactly what Flag is going through.
yeah, I'm sure he helped Flag exceed at point guard much more than he would have. But, some people play, some people coach. But Jason Kidd was a good coach before this. He's been a
Yeah.
good coach.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But it's also the kind of thing, he's here at a bad time. They're rebuilding. So you bring in a new guy in charge of the whole basketball operation, the first thing he's going to do is find his own coach.
Got you. And I heard, moving from Dallas, but staying on the West Coast in the Western Conference, I heard maybe Kawhi Leonard and Golden State. Have you heard that? Like rumors of that?
Yeah, so it seems like every year there's either a LeBron in Golden State or a Kawhi in Golden State or somebody who's going to go to Golden State to have a last hurrah. It's almost like, what's the movie, The Expendables, with all of the old time action stars, It's kind of like Golden State is reaching that point, Draymond's old. Steph is still amazing, but he's, what is he, like 38 right now? So he's kind of near in the end. Do they try to put together like the super old timer team and
Mm,
see if they can do something? That would be fun. And Kawhi's got that whole mess in LA as it is right now with the league investigation and Pablo Torre and all of that, with
mhm.
how he was maybe paid under the table to circumvent the cap. So maybe a fresh start for him wouldn't be the worst thing either.
Yeah, but that was with the Clippers.
That's what
So
I
yeah,
mean. That's what I mean. Yeah.
yeah, just madness there. And then we would be remiss if we didn't really speak about the Spurs. I feel like we kind of talked about the Knicks a lot. What are your thoughts on the Spurs and their future right
Yeah,
now?
so I mean, they have some just incredible young talent. You look at Castle, you look at Ron Harper's kid, who 20 years old, and he's really, to me, he's already their second best player. They made a trade to get, I don't even know if you can call him a veteran, but the trade they made with the Kings to get the lefty point guard. Why am I blanking on his name?
Fox.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox, who actually hasn't played as well in the play. I always really liked his game in Sacramento, but he hasn't played as well. He had a big shot last night, but he hasn't played as well in the playoffs as I would have hoped. But they're doing it the right way for a team with Wembenyama. They are going with that young core, and they are building a team that can compete already. The fact that they can already physically handle what OKC threw at them, I think is really impressive. And that wasn't just about Wembenyama being dominant, even though he was. It took Vassell, it took Steph Castle, it took a bunch of those guys, those younger guys, who have really just stepped up. Champagny, has made a bunch of big shots. Has turned out to be a pretty good 3-point shooter for them. So I like where they're at, but you watch the first 3 games of the finals, and maybe they're about to turn it around because they had the big win in New York last night. They played better in the second half of game 2. But for a lot of the finals, they have looked really shaky, passing the ball to nobody and that kind of stuff. And you wonder if maybe they're just not ready. I mean, you remember Shaq's first finals in 95, he got swept. LeBron's first finals in 07, he got swept. So it's kind of a rite of passage a lot of times for these younger players. You make your first finals and it doesn't go well. And then you are rededicated and you have that drive and you come back and you win one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. OKC definitely just won it last year without that blueprint, and that's
Yes.
what the Spurs are trying to do as well. It's very interesting. Let's go to the NHL. Let's talk about the NHL Finals for a second. Now I got I'm down here in Wall Street South, Charlotte, North Carolina. So go Hurricanes! Hurricanes in 6 or 7 games. For those who don't know, what are you seeing and hearing with the NHL right now?
Yeah, so one thing that's fascinating to me before we get to the finals, which have been tremendous, the TV numbers have been through the roof for the NHL, and I'm not even sure why. I don't know if it's an Olympics kind of thing where that sparked a lot of interest in the sport. There have actually been stories that Heated Rivalry, the HBO show, has brought in a lot of female fans. A lot of women are watching hockey now. I don't know if that's true or not. I guess I would tell them, if you're coming from Heated Rivalry and you turn on a hockey game, be prepared to just watch hockey. That's all you're going to see. But the ratings, they're up like almost 100% over last year. And part of that is ABC versus TNT, so you have a bigger reach. But it doesn't fully explain. And even Nielsen's ratings have changed this year. They have a new formulation to how they do it. And so ratings have risen across the board for every sport. They have a better way now of accounting for like games that you watch in bars, how many people are seeing them, that kind of thing. So that has boosted ratings, but it has not boosted them to the level that hockey has seen. So there is clearly some kind of renaissance going on there. I will then say, to get to this finals, these 3 games have been amazing. And if they can somehow miraculously maintain this pace for 7 games, this would be the greatest Stanley Cup final in history. That's not even an exaggeration. I mean, you've had 2 games in overtime, 1 game in double overtime. You and I were talking before we came on, and you made the point. It's like, whoever looks like they're about to win is the team that's going to lose. I mean, the comeback that Carolina had in game 3, they're down 4-0 and they score 4 goals in what feels like about a minute. And then they lose on the craziest bounce I've ever seen in double OT, shot that hits the boards and caroms in off the back of the goalie. So anyway, just been a ton of drama. You have Mitch Marner playing out of his mind for Vegas. You talk about how teams have been built. Vegas is an expansion team. They're only like 8 years old or whatever it is, and they're already in their 3rd finals, trying to win their 2nd. So anyway, it's just been tremendous theater. Both finals. ABC has both finals, NBA and NHL, and they are killing it right now because every other night the sports are just alternating. Both series super compelling, super fun to watch.
Yeah, and on the business side of that, like, it is interesting that ABC has both finals because the NBA has the NBC deal, and they also have they were showing the playoffs through Prime a lot, and then you get to the finals and it's like back on ABC where they've been for a while.
And you know what? That's an interesting point you make, because one thing that I think plays in the favor of the NHL, there's been so many stories, and rightfully so, because it is so frustrating as a fan. The NBA, first rounds of the NBA were so frustrating. The Celtics played on Prime, they played on Peacock, they played on ESPN. It was like, what am I don't know which one of these stupid streamers I have to watch tonight. The NHL playoffs, every single game has been available on what we call linear television, whether it's ESPN or ABC or TNT. All of the games have been available without streaming. That doesn't mean you can't stream them. Some of you have been able to stream on the ESPN app, whatever. But you've been able to watch all of those games on regular TV, and I think there is something to be said for that.
Definitely something to be said to that. I don't understand why I do understand revenue. You want your revenue. The Knicks were one of the first one, Madison Square Garden. Their stock, I got to talk about stocks a little bit. Their stock prices shot up during this playoff run. But you look at hockey and the way these teams are constructed, their salary caps are not like the NBA and MLB. How are they building these teams? Do you know?
So it's totally, so MLB has no salary cap, which we will get to, but it's maybe coming in the next CBA. But the NFL and NBA, you look at a hockey contract, like some star player will sign a deal. If he were a baseball player, it would be $250 million. If he were a basketball player, it'd be 300 and something million. He's a hockey player, so maybe it's 80 million. I mean, the numbers are just completely different. Like a $6 to $8 million AAV is really high in hockey. And $6 million in baseball is like a middle reliever, a good middle reliever, but a middle reliever. So it's just a completely different sport. And hockey really does. The NBA has all kinds of rules, with its salary cap. And especially in the new CBA, it really punishes teams like the Celtics that have 2 great players in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. It's really hard to build a team around them, which is why the Celtics last year got rid of Porzingis and Drew Holiday and all these guys who had helped them win a title, Al Horford. The NHL salary cap is real. And so if you have a couple of bad contracts, it's you basically, to boil it down, you have to hit on your big contracts. And you look at the finals. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like Mitch Marner was a great player in Toronto. Toronto is kind of a cursed franchise, so they always get bounced in the first round. Their fans are kind of like what Red Sox fans were pre-2004. They just know it's going to end badly. And he comes to Vegas, and he's a killer. I mean, he's going to win the Conn Smythe for a playoff MVP, assuming even if Vegas loses, he might win it. I mean, he's been that good. So these teams have hit on the guys they need to hit on.
Very impressive. Yeah. And you have like the Charlotte Hornets down here in the small market team. And there was a while, even when they were the Bobcats, where they were getting draft pick after draft pick after draft pick, but they just were not hitting with them. I remember like Rudy Gay just won the NCAA championship at UConn, and we drafted Adam Morrison, who was great in college, but you got to realize college doesn't translate into pros. Jimmer, you remember Jimmer?
Oh,
he was
Jimmer
great in college.
BYU.
But he wasn't great in the NBA. But and to say, when we say people aren't great in the NBA, if they came out and played basketball with any person in the world, they would destroy us. But NBA great's a different kind of great. Let's shift over to another thing that's happening in America right now, because there is a lot happening right now. The World Cup. I'm hearing a lot about the World Cup, from, ticket prices, how much it costs to get there, to even there's still seats available. What's going on with LinkedIn or anything over there in the World Cup?
Yeah. So, I mean, this World Cup, so I will just say very quickly, if you go back, the Russian World Cup, there was a lot of negative press before that started because of Russia. Qatar, same thing. There were talks about forced labor and negative headlines. And then the tournament starts and the play starts. And what happens on the field is so captivating that we kind of forget. Because this one is in our backyard, the sheer volume of negative headlines that have come out of this tournament based around things that really are totally within FIFA's control. Dynamic pricing is the first one. For the first time, they have decided to base ticket prices on demand. And how they determine demand and supply is shady, to be frank. What they do is they don't release all their tickets at once. They release the tickets in little dribs and drabs. They create artificial scarcity, and they drive the prices way up. And what we're seeing, we just saw it in Game 3 last night for the Knicks. The get-in prices for that game, $7,000, $8,000, the cheapest tickets you could get. What's happening is normal fans are being priced out of these games. And it's kind of like, I've seen it, or this would be more your domain, but the whole K-shaped economy. It really is kind of reflected in how these soccer games, it's like the ultimate haves can attend these games and everybody else is on the outside looking in. So I think that beyond anything else, beyond some of the, whatever FIFA sort of shenanigans accompany every major tournament, the ticketing is really the thing that is upsetting people. And you mentioned tickets available. So the Financial Times had a story today. On the resale market, there are about 180,000 tickets currently available, and they estimate that virtually all of them are going to be sold for a loss once you subtract FIFA's fees, because it's their resale market. These tickets are going to be sold for below market prices, because Canada, for instance, has two venues, Toronto and Vancouver. They haven't sold out. As of yesterday, they had not sold out a single game. USA Paraguay, the opener for Team USA, you would think one of the hottest tickets in the tournament. As of the last I looked, there were still about 4,500 seats left for that game. And so what you're having is you just have a lot of people who say, I'm not paying for this. I'll watch it on TV.
Yeah. And it's very it's sad that people can't go watch live sports anymore. Live sports is the one thing that one of the few things AI can't seem to come take over are live sporting events. I remember when you could go to an NBA game or an NFL game, because we have the Hornets, we have the Panthers here, a family, like $100, you and a couple kids. Definitely to the NBA back in the 80s, $100 was, you were living good, eating big hot dogs and everything, $100 won't get you in there by yourself now, really, to an NBA game or NFL game. So it's just a very interesting paradox. Do you want to say anything else on the World Cup and just the impact that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing is, we have to be honest about America's place in the world at the moment, and if there are trade wars with multiple countries and, our immigration policies aren't as friendly as they were, say, 3 years ago. So you have a lot of people who, even if they want to come here, it's difficult. It's hard to get over here. So I think it's also a tournament right now that kind of reflects America writ large, where a divided country, sadly. And this is supposed to be a uniting tournament. This was supposed to be a uniting bid. I mean, it was North America for a reason. It was how Canada, Mexico, and the US could work together. And now, because of tariffs, there's no secret there, we have Canada and Mexico at odds with the US, or the US at odds with them. And so I think you can never, the World Cup is it's always a political event in some way. And unfortunately, I don't think you can really extricate the politics from it right now.
Yeah, there's so much geopolitical tensions going on right now. And yeah, you mentioned that it's across 3 countries right now. So there's so much going on. This is a unique type of World Cup environment. But there has been political tensions while World Cups were happening before. I mean, I remember like
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
90s, you had Serbia and all those things happening when World Cups were happening, like the literal dissolution of the Soviet Union. So, but we're definitely more polarized right now. We're going to take a second here before we jump into these labor NIL. I want to share something with everyone. So, a big topic lately has been NILs, contracts with players. How do you keep players engaged? How do you keep teams
Bobby Bonilla
competitive?
Day.
I mean, I'm down
The
here in
internet
Charlotte.
loves the meme of him getting paid into his 60s. I think we're looking at it wrong. Let's look at it from a purely business lens. That was a
Sorry.
.com
We got to
Bobby
hear this at the
Bonilla Day.
beginning.
Now, the internet loves the meme of him getting paid into his 60s. I think we're looking at it wrong. Let's look at it from a purely business lens. That was a .com contract. We're in the AI era, so that contract wasn't a win. It was a .com era relic. It was a trade of massive future growth for a fixed guarantee paid out. We moved past the .com era and into the AI infrastructure era. And in today's market, value isn't just about cash flow. It's about capital expenditures and equity. Think about it. If Bobby had taken the same $5.9 million deferred in 2000 and treated it like a venture capital play, taking a stake in the Mets franchise instead of a deferred paycheck, his payday would have been the $30 million over 25 years. When Steve Cohen bought the team for $2.4 billion, the equity stake would have been worth around $40 million in a single liquidity event. So why are we still paying our biggest stars like it's 1999? We're stuck in this cycle of supermax salaries that trap the players as an employee. We want to align the incentives of this AI-driven market. We have to move to an equity-linked model. Imagine that instead of just a massive salary, a star player's contract was structured kind of like an annuity of equity. You vest it over time. The longer you stay, the more you own. You're not just an athlete, you're a landlord of the franchise. Your off-court brand work, your NIL deals, your social media presence, all of that is now marketing for an asset you hold a piece of. If a player acts out or their brand suffers, the value of their own equity drops. It makes the athlete a self-policing partner, not just a high-paid guest. NBA, NFL, NHL, MLS is kind of doing this a little bit with Messi, but these aren't just teams. They're corporations. They have boards, they have franchises, and they have a massive corporation infrastructure. Nike, Adidas, Reebok, they're all looking for ways to lock these players into their ecosystem. So why not create a tri-party deal? The sponsor, the player, and the franchise all sharing the growth of the team's valuation. That's something to think about. We see the business flow news every day. Leagues, there's someone from every league watching this. Are y'all ready to bring the players into the ownership tent? Or are you still comfortable with that 1999 bottle?
What you think, John? It's
I
fan.
love that. I love that. But I think you asked the key question at the end. Owners, are you ready to bring the players in as equity partners? And the answer to that is no. But I shouldn't say that, because certain players, you have to be a stature of a Messi. Messi can get a piece of a league if he wants to. You have to be the status of a player like LeBron. But for the rank and file, the owners don't want to give. This is why MLB is about to go to labor war. The owners don't want to give the players anything. But I love your point about the Bobby Bonilla contract. Bobby Bonilla Day rolls around every year. He gets like $2 million, or I forget the amount, but 2.2 million or something like that. And it's this deal that he signed like 30 years ago. And so it's this curiosity. He plays it up. He likes it. But you're right. It's kind of short-sighted. I even wonder with Shohei Ohtani's humongous $700 million contract with the Dodgers, where he basically deferred like $600 million of it. And it's like, you're just giving the team an interest-free loan, But this is how, I mean, it's still $600 million at the end, or $700 million at the end of the day. So I don't want to cry poor on behalf of Shohei Ohtani. But I think you're right. And you are definitely seeing athletes, if not being able to take a piece of a team, they are much more in charge of their own brands now than they have ever been. And I think it's really a step towards what you're talking about.
Yeah. And with the Bobby Bonilla deal, he wasn't the first player to take deferred salary. So that goes all the way back to like Catfish Hunter. Shout out to North Carolina. He's from down here in North Carolina. But players were taking, yeah, they were taking deferred salaries. Other players are taking deferred salaries. Even who I think Manny Ramirez took a deferred salary. So these deferred salaries work out. People ask like, why would the Mets defer his salary and pay him? So not to sit in it too long, but the Mets at the time took this. They agreed on the rate. I think it was 8% interest that they were going to pay Bobby Bonilla, but they were getting 10 to 12%. But they were invested in a Madoff scheme, so they didn't even get that money back. Think about it. All that time, they've gotten that money back. They've recouped that money. I think of small market teams, and like I said, I'm down here in Charlotte, so listen to me, Hornets. If you want to keep LaMelo Ball, give that young man like 0.01% of the team that he can grow into up like 1% of the team, but still pay him a salary, deferred, and you'll get more commitment from players. That's my opinion.
I like that. And I'll say, by the way, I like your Hornets a lot. I love LaMelo. Obviously, you did great with Concanipple in the draft, and that's a fun team to watch. So, and they were a tough out this year. So I'm curious to see how good. I just hope LaMelo stays healthy.
Yeah, well, he doesn't wear his dad's shoes, so that helps him out. That definitely helps him out.
Yeah.
And even with the Hornets, speaking of the equity part, and like I said, if a player does something bad that they may lose part of it, Miles Bridges. You got to think back a few years with Miles Bridges. If Miles Bridges didn't have that incident, this Hornets team's not constructed the way it is. The Hornets got a huge discount for Miles Bridges by acts of his own being, but they got a huge discount for Miles Bridges, and that helped create the court they have. And they actually drafted once Michael Jordan decided to go to NASCAR, which is very interesting.
Can't argue with any of that.
We kind of gleamed over labor, NILs, and Major League Baseball. So let me ask you a question. First of all, you heard about the player. This is like breaking news before we even got the topics out. The player who is now going to be able to play college football this year out at Texas Tech. I think he's going to trial in like 27. But it's the same day they announced that Terry Rozier has to forfeit his entire contract. Both for gambling, both for playing sports. What's your take? What are you hearing?
Yeah, so it's Brendan Sorsby is the quarterback at Texas Tech. When he was at Indiana, he admitted he wasn't really playing at that point, but he admitted to betting on games and betting on his own team. So that is a no-no. And Terry Rozier, I mean, his scandal is pretty well known now in the NBA. He was seemingly throwing games, certainly throwing his own performance in games, to help bettors hit the unders on his various points, rebounds, assists. The videos are wild if you've watched some of the games, where he's just throwing. I covered Terry Rozier. I saw a lot of him in Boston, and some of the shots he was missing seemingly intentionally. An NBA player couldn't miss that badly unless they were trying. So anyway, we have two big gambling scandals. What's fascinating to me, and this is not an original thought, but just the way the leagues are everything is sponsored by FanDuel and DraftKings and BetMGM, and it's gambling ads everywhere. And, you look at the regional sports networks, they build in, or not even that. You look at TNT and then ESPN with the Inside the NBA guys. Chuck, what's your pick at halftime? Oh, I think Jason Tatum's going to go over. So gambling is so intertwined with these sports, and I'm a little uncomfortable with the players having to face these career-ending consequences. And don't get me wrong, what Rozier did is beyond the pale, so that's fine. But for instance, a college kid who bet on a game when they are bombarded with advertisements about gambling, I'm hesitant to end his career. And he was supposed to be permanently banned by the NCAA. He won his appeal, so he's instead, as of now, going to sit out 2 games to start the year. then he's going to be able to transfer to Texas Tech and play. You already have Big Ten teams saying we will ban Texas Tech from our schedule. I just think this holier than thou attitude from these leagues and these institutions when they are so in bed with the gambling companies is really problematic to me. And yes, we don't want gambling in sports, but we have gambling in sports. So I just think it's a really tough one to break down right now.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of gambling in sports and plenty of gambling. People gamble on everything now. You have Kalshi, you have Poly Markets, they gamble on everything. Like, it was interesting with the Knicks, that the money,
Oh,
they have more money on the Knicks.
that's not gambling though. Poly market and Kalshi and those things, those are prediction markets. That's different. You're trading. So I mean that's the kind of thing where you sort of have to say, if they can all get away with that, why should a college kid be banned for life?
Right. Okay, so let's say, all right, you work at LinkedIn. So there are things that happen at LinkedIn behind the scenes that people won't know. Let's say there was some Kalshi or Poly Market bet about LinkedIn, something, some rollout or some feature in the background, and someone that worked there could bet on it. What do you think about that? Like, where do you see the line? Because you're
Oh yeah,
blurred, right? We're
that to
blurred
me,
here.
that's a complete no-no. And that's, I'm again, it's no secret that one of the big criticisms of the prediction markets is that they're just insider trading farms. I know people who are gamblers and are pretty good at it and even almost make the living at it, believe it or not, and they won't touch the prediction markets for that reason. They say it's insider trading, and now this is a separate thing, but the banks and some of the bigger places that are involved in this stuff now, they have so much data at their hands. They're not doing anything illegal. I'm not saying that, but they have such a leg up on the common, somebody who goes on to just make a bet. You're going up against these financial behemoths that just have so much more information and so much more data and so much more analytical power that it's not a level playing field.
Yeah, and that's always kind of been the case with people when you try to invest or bank or do any type of move against large institutions like that. They use their money and their power for reasons. Like, they use them to gain and continue control. When did you first hear about NILs?
Probably when it happened. I'm not like the biggest. So, I mean, first of all, being in sports for years, I remember Marcus Camby, at UMass going back from my neck of the woods 30 years ago now, 96 Final Four team. They had to vacate all of their wins because Camby took money, and it was really kind of quaint by today's standards. And so we've had that discussion, that debate for so long. Should college athletes be paid? And my contention has always been yes. The NCAA, to me, exploited their labor, and the argument that, well, you get a college scholarship, you say, well, okay, a college scholarship in today's money might be worth $400,000 at one of the priciest schools in America. These kids are generating a lot more revenue than 400,000. So I'm glad that they get paid. But the system right now just is broken. It does not work. And I don't know if you have thoughts on how to fix it. My thing would be, can you give these kids contracts? Can they sign multi-year deals? So you can at least, I'm going to sign a 3-year deal to play at USC. And the transfer portal is not going to just churn. It feels like no two players spend 2 years in a row at the same school, and that makes it hard to watch. It makes it hard to invest in as a fan, emotionally. And so I think that's something the NCAA needs to fix. But as far as NIL existing, I think it's the right thing. I think the model needs tweaking, but the idea is fair. These players deserve to get paid.
Very good, very good. Yeah, and I don't know how you keep players there anymore. I think they're referring to giving them another gap year if you do transfer, so you can't just transfer and play immediately. That'll be played out. We'll see how it works out with the NCAA. I know the NCAA, some conferences are talking about splitting off and starting their own thing. Maybe the SEC said they wanted to do that with football. SEC may be overrating football, just for the record, but there's a lot of good football across this entire country. That's all I'm saying. And then Major League Baseball's in a situation, you mentioned earlier, they don't have a salary cap. Do you think a salary cap's coming to baseball? Or are we about to see, I'm old enough to remember a lockout baseball season. Are we headed to that?
Yeah, I think all signs are definitely pointing to a lockout. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. This is the sport I covered the most. I covered baseball for 25 years. I've been through a lot of labor negotiations. I wasn't there in 94. That predates me. But certainly in the early 2000s, I think it was 2000, they nearly had a strike slash lockout that they avoided at the last minute. Just a couple of years ago, coming out of the pandemic, it looked like the season wasn't going to start. And they again had a last minute CBA agreement. Right now, though, you are talking the cliche about the irresistible force and the immovable object. That's what you've got right now because you have owners saying, this is the CBA where we institute a salary cap and you can't stop us. And the players say, over our dead bodies, we have fought a salary cap successfully for 40 plus years. We are the most united union in sports. And if we're saving our money, the union has a big fund to help players who are going to lose paychecks. And if you want to lock us out, be prepared to go to the mattresses because we are. And I wish I had an answer to this question. Is there going to be a salary cap or no? A lot of people who are around the game right now think that this is coming out hell or high water. There's going to be some kind of cap. I'm not so sure because the union, that is the one issue they have never given in on. And Bruce Meyer is the leader of the union right now. I don't know that I want to be the MLBPA head who replaced Tony Clark, by the way, because of a scandal. I don't know if I want to be the guy who gave in on a salary cap.
Yeah, I mean, baseball definitely has crazy salaries. And it's interesting how you were mentioned earlier, like, so baseball, basketball, the sports, soccer, the sports where you get injured the least per se, pay the most amount of money. But then as you go into hockey and football, those players tend to make less money. Uh, what else are some points of consternation with the MLB labor agreements?
Yeah, I mean, there's also the issue of the salary floor. If you're going to have a cap, so what a lot of the players are upset about is we want to make teams spend. You have teams like the Oakland A's before they became the Sacramento A's on their way to being the Vegas A's, who just had pathetic salary cap or salary structures, so they want a floor. They want the low spending teams like the Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates are one of the lowest spending teams in MLB. They have been for a long time under their owner, Bob Nutting, I want to say. And so the players want the lower spending teams to be forced to invest in their rosters. But really, you can strip away anything like for instance, one criticism that the players got was the last CBA. They were more concerned with getting things like suites on the road and just these kind of like minor perks that should not have been front and center in a labor negotiation. All of that I can guarantee you is out the window this time. This time is going to be about no cap versus cap.
So that's the big point right now. Is no
Yeah,
cap
I mean,
versus
that's really it. I don't even know the cap and the floor. After that, I honestly don't know what the third issue is because I don't think they're going to get that far.
Gotcha. Do you know the date, like off the top of your head, when they will have to reach some type of before
So
this
December
lockout?
1st, the current CBA expires. So they're going to get through the playoffs and all of that. This season will go as planned. Then the next date would be, February 9th, 10th, whenever spring training is supposed to start. That will sort of be the next deadline. And then you look basically opening day is usually right around April 1st. So we'll have a good idea, I think, by February when spring training is supposed to start. If there's no agreement there, then we're really looking potentially at a lockout. And I think the owners are sort of girding up for a lockout. I think that's what they want because that's really the only way they can impose their will on the players, unless the players just fold. But the MLBPA's history is not to fold.
Gotcha. And we mentioned earlier that the players and the revenues, there's definitely record revenues coming through in certain sports, like with hockey and how many people are watching. Where are you seeing with advertising dollars? Because that's what these contracts are based on, like that amount of advertising dollars that these companies can get, these corporations.
Yeah. So in the case of MLB's having a renaissance. I don't know if you've seen like the tarps off phenomenon where young male fans are stripping off their shirts and waving them over their heads. It started at a Cardinals game like 6 weeks ago with a college baseball team, and it's all young fans, and they're all engaged with baseball. You look at baseball's numbers with Gen Z, they're on the upswing. You look at their TV ratings, they're on the upswing. Therefore, their advertising rates are higher. The time of game has dropped because they instituted a pitch clock. So baseball is really at a moment where it's finally reclaiming some of its place. For the longest time, baseball was the number one sport in America. Then the NFL displaced it probably 40 years ago and has held that spot ever since. But there was a time where baseball versus basketball was getting really tenuous, which was the number two sport in America. And right now, if you look at the numbers, even though basketball probably has more of the sort of cool factor, baseball is still revenue wise and all of that, the number two sport in America. And so this labor deal really risks messing that up. To answer your question more broadly, advertising dollars in pro sports. I mean, we've been talking about it now, how ABC has been dominating this recent TV stretch because they have the finals in both sports. We were talking about streamers, how they are willing to spend any amount of money to get live sports. We're talking about World Cup tickets and World Cup rights. You know, World Cup broadcast rights have been an issue, not just in America, but India and China for a while. The two most populous countries on earth didn't have World Cup TV agreements because FIFA was holding out for more money. Live sports are the most valuable entertainment product in the world right now. That might actually not even be an overstatement. So you're looking at just in this fractured media age where people watch clips on their phones and don't watch TV shows anymore like they used to, and there's a million channels for everybody. Live sports are the one thing that people will tune in at this time for this duration. They'll sit through the commercials, the whole thing. That makes it hugely valuable.
Yeah, live sports are definitely a game changer. And yeah, so the revenue, so it's just going to come down to where they're being paid inside of that. You you mentioned how you mentioned that you've been in a reporter, a journalist for decades now. I don't know if you saw the post I made, newsletter actually published about the broke athlete, the broke mindset. Do you remember that ESPN 30 for 30, where they were talking about broke and how people were going broke from it was 2008, I think, is when it came out. And Bart Scott said you can live like a prince for a year or a king, or prince forever or a king for a year. What were you seeing with athletes back then?
Yeah. So, I mean, this has certainly been an ongoing concern. I've covered plenty of guys who went from, I mean, it was always kind of sad to me. I covered, for instance, Scott Williamson, pitched for the Red Sox. He was a good closer for the Reds. He was an all-star. The Red Sox acquired him. He got hurt, but he was still on the team that won the World Series in 2004. And I remember his wife actually calling me when I was at the Boston Herald. He was selling his World Series rings. And, you know, whether it was for investment and whatever, it's still just kind of sad when you see athletes get to that point where something precious and priceless, they have to part with it, you know? And I've seen guys spend all their money. I've seen guys, the one thing that always jumped out at me, and this was across sports, I saw it a lot in baseball because that was the sport I covered the most, but you see the entourage that players have, and not in the sense of the show, like the TV show, but just like all the people around them. A lot of times it's family. They're with them on road trips. There's a dozen of them at after every game, and they all have this job or that job. So maybe it is kind of like the TV show. Uh, and you just say to yourself, there's no way you can support these people while you're making your millions. But the second that faucet turns off, what are you going to do? And I think players are much smarter about that now. But certainly 15, 20 years ago, there was very much a live in the moment sort of approach to that, to wealth. And a lot of these guys came from nothing, you know, whether you were a basketball player from the inner city or a football player from the cornfields, suddenly you are rich. And not everybody knows how to handle that. I don't know if I were 20 years old and somebody threw 10 million bucks at me that I would spend it very wisely.
Oh yeah, man. I'm such an advocate of financial literacy and just the interesting things that the lack thereof. It doesn't matter whether you have money or whether you don't have money, it's how much you spend versus how much you save at the end of the day. This portfolio here is what they suggested, and this was several financial advisors who were on here at the time for a model portfolio. This is what they were suggesting. This is what, so you see that 60, 55, 50 to 65% equities, 15, 20% alternatives. That's a big thing now. Private equity. So that could be, that could be your ownership in that company we were talking about, in your business, and then real estate. This is how they were actually allocated. So, yeah, a bunch of private equity. Like you said, people are coming up to the athletes and saying, I got this idea, I got this thing. I think they pointed out car washes is one of the big things. Although car
Yes.
washes are making a comeback now. Like car washes are actually somehow making money again. What did you see any athletes trying to help athletes understand that this is the money they're going to live with for the rest of their lives? I heard a story where Charles Barkley said, I think it was Julius Urban told him, hey man, this money has to last you the rest of your life.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I mean, the one guy that comes to mind, and unfortunately, this is on the flip side of what you said, but I distinctly remember during that 2000-ish labor negotiation where it looked like there was going to be a strike slash lockout. I remember talking to Ricky Henderson, one of the all-time greats, rest in peace, just passed away in the last year or so. But Ricky at that point was maybe, 43, 44 years old. So he had a better handle on finances than everyone else. But I remember him, and this is not answering your exact question, but I remember him holding forth where I asked him about, what the players wanted in the deal and, what the owners were offering or whatever. And he said that there's really no difference between me, Ricky Henderson, and a truck driver. He said, if I make $100,000 a week and I spend it all, and he makes $1,500 a week and he spends it all, we are the same. And there is a point to that. That is true. But it also made me think, and he was famously cheap actually, so he did save a lot of money. But it did make me think like that might not be the best message for a young player. I'm not sure.
Yeah, if you're going to spend it, spend. It's kind of what he said. Like you said, he was frugal. Who else was frugal with their earnings?
So famously, Manny Ramirez. Manny Ramirez was somebody who he kept money in shoe boxes and he made million. I mean, he had a $200 million contract with the Red Sox or $160 million contract with the Red Sox when there weren't too many of those in baseball. And he was someone who I don't know that he invested well, but I know that he was someone who was notoriously cheap. I heard stories about how, another guy was JD Drew. So JD Drew, former Atlanta Brave, when he played for the Red Sox, he was someone who did invest money and he would encourage players to be smart with their money. But his cheapness was more like he would, I'm trying to think, like he would ask for somebody's Wi-Fi code, in a hotel so he could send like the $5 kind of thing. And this is someone who had signed a $75 million contract. He's one of my all-time favorite players to cover. He was a smart guy, and he definitely was of the mind that you have to be smart with your money at a time when not everybody felt that way.
Nice. No, that's very cool. Another one, did you hear stories about Rob Gronkowski while he was up there?
Gronk. So I'm not as familiar with Gronk, the businessman, but fill me in.
So I heard Gronk, I actually heard him saying it. So it's not like I heard it secondhand. I love firsthand source, primary information. He was
Sure.
speaking when he moved up there. He said, okay, so I'm up here. I got 4 years, $4 million. I can live off $4 million for the rest of my life because it'll be like, he did the math. I think he said he could live off $50,000 a year from the interest payments. So I'm guessing he's just putting it in cash. He's not even investing at this point.
Yep.
Just putting it in cash. But he was talking about how he lived with his expenses. He said him and his roommate had a $1,500 a month townhouse that they were renting, right? Think about that. They're playing in the NFL. They're renting a $1,500 townhouse in Boston. He said they pretty much stayed at the stadium or at the practice facility, so they fed him 3 meals a day. It's just, who else was I think it was, there was another athlete who said they would sleep there when they first started in the NFL. Maybe it was Chad Ochocinco. He's extremely frugal as well. I digress on that, but are there any athletes who you are infamous that you know for spending too much? Maybe not say their names, but maybe some stories.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Okay, so I won't say the name, but there was a Red Sox player that I covered when he signed a big contract and he was young. The first thing he did was he showed up pretty much the next day in, I'm not a car person, so I couldn't tell if it was a Maserati or a Ferrari or whatever, but it was some, you know, $500,000 car. But what I remember was it was tricked out so that it had lights along sort of like the runners or whatever on the side of the car, that he had a special logo made of himself and he had his number, and these lights like shined it down onto the road. So wherever he went, you would see his logo and his number. And I just remember being like, that was not a good use of your money. And that was somebody who flamed out fast. And I would not be surprised if he is broke right now, unfortunately.
That's personal branding. That's his personal branding just out there. But I guess he was ahead of his time. Are you seeing any initiatives from franchises and teams to help their players move forward with this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can't say off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of like a financial literacy something. I think the union has probably been, and at least in baseball, has been more proactive about that. But you certainly look at a guy like Steph Curry, who just signed his huge, um, sneaker deal, and really more than that, he took the whole Curry brand over to a Chinese company, and
400
that's
million.
somebody who is saying, I am looking well beyond my playing career. And Steph Curry, by the way, is active on LinkedIn. There's a few players there, Jalen Brunson. So there are a number of players now who are really taking that sort of literacy thing to their personal brands. And I think Curry's probably the best example. LeBron's another one, obviously. LeBron owns a piece of the Red Sox. LeBron is somebody to go back to, the graphic and presentation that you had made earlier about giving players equity. LeBron is somebody who is big on equity. He wants to see former players in ownership roles. He wants to see, people, uh, players come out of their careers with a vision of how they can take a piece of these teams, take ownership of these teams, and then build something lasting. And I'll give you one other player. I'll give you a good one. Jaylen Brown in Boston. Jaylen Brown in Boston started basically like a wealth fund where he wants to ensure that, as he said, black and brown children in Boston can learn how to build generational wealth. And that's something that, and he's put, I mean, a ton of money into this. Like, I don't want to say a number because I can't remember it exactly, but I think it's in like this 7 and 8 figures. Like, he's really putting his money where his mouth is on that. He wants to build generational wealth.
That's very cool, actually, Jalen Brown. He might be one of the highest paid players in the NBA with that deal. He just got that max contract extension.
He
Jalen
was
Brown will be one,
Yeah, he was briefly the highest paid player in the NBA.
and he's giving it back. Before we go to the LinkedIn area part, I want to the questions because I have questions. With Jalen Brown, with these NBA players, with these portfolios, how can the NBA, NHL, MLB, anyone who may watch this, NASCAR, PGA, there's a lot of people who signed up. How can they help even more with these athletes? You think maybe mentoring them or partnering them with a former athlete? How can they help?
Yeah, I mean, I think they should be, when you think about how the owners made their money, and when you think about how the owners have been successful in business, I think that they should give that back in some way to their players. And they should be, if not literal partners, where they're not going to give up a piece of their franchise willingly, because we've talked about that. If they can at least be partners in the literacy part of this and explaining how to build wealth, I think what we're seeing now is there are a generation of players. Curry and LeBron are the two like immediate examples in and even if you go to the NFL, Tom Brady, he's become a part of the ownership group with the Raiders. He's got his business empire, between health stuff and all of the various brands that he has. I think you need a generation of star players to really impress upon the next guys that this is how you do it. And I think there has been a movement towards that. I think you've seen it with some of the most high profile players in these sports.
Yeah, it's definitely not where it was before, like the awareness that we have with concussions and head injuries. One interesting player last year was, or maybe that was 2 years ago, when Caleb Williams signed his contract and he wanted to get it all into a nonprofit. Do you remember that? So he wouldn't have to pay
Yep.
taxes.
Yeah. Caleb Williams is an interesting dude for sure. And I also think, you look at where all these athletes are right now, and they're just the older generation was every man for himself. And I think these guys have a much more sort of like holistic view, if that's the right word, or overarching view of their place and their fellow players' place and how they build real lasting wealth as opposed to whatever they can grab as a player.
Gotcha. Yeah, just you have to establish it, understand it, and make moves with it. I mean, people just waste money like it's going to be there forever. It's a sad thing to see. Um, so we're going to go into some of the questions that people ask you, John. We're going to go into the role as a LinkedIn editor. Before we get into that, let's just tell me a little bit more about how you became the sports editor over there at LinkedIn. Uh, I've given you that name. Other people have given you that name. Whether you want to claim it or not, you can't claim the title. But yeah, how did that come about? What made LinkedIn decide that it was time to go into sports?
Yeah, I think, like I was saying earlier, I think it's there's been this recognition. Yahoo's doing it. They've expanded their business coverage. You look at the sites that have popped up. Front Office Sports is tremendous. Sports Business Journal has been around. They're good. Sportico is good. Sports business is just hot right now because I think A, people are into business stories to begin with, but B, we know how valuable the rights deals are, the franchise valuations are. Sports are huge business. And it's a way, I think, to draw in fans to business coverage a little bit. And so I think, we've recognized that like anybody else. And, we want to give people a reason to be on our platform. And if you can expand that reach a little bit by bringing in some sports fans who also have expertise in business, then what is there? There's no harm in trying. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and you were mentioning LeBron James and Steph Curry. How are they using LinkedIn? I imagine
I don't
Larry
know if
Fitzgerald.
LeBron uses it as much, but Steph is on there, to announce his deals. You have, Jalen Brunson is on there. AJ DeBonsa has been posting quite a bit. He's probably going to be the number one pick in the draft coming up. He's at BYU. He's been on there a lot. Fernando Mendoza has been LinkedIn's MVP. That's the only social platform he uses. And in fact, when he won the national title, the first thing he did was go in and post on LinkedIn. So I do think that it's really a Gen Z thing in a bigger sense, that there's a lot of financial literacy with that generation because they're looking at AI and disruption and wondering what jobs they're going to have. And maybe they're looking at their parents struggling to pay mortgages or keep jobs. And they're saying, you know what, we need to be on the ball with our investing from the beginning. And there's all kinds of stats about how that generation is investing younger and more smartly than their predecessors, like Gen X, like me, or millennials. And so I think you have a lot of athletes right now who recognize that value, and they see LinkedIn as a valuable platform to make some of that stuff known. And then I will say, on the flip side, we just added Billie Jean King has been posting quite a bit. Someone in her 80s who just graduated from college again, but is a huge name in the history of sports. So I like to think that there's a home for everybody on LinkedIn.
That's very good, John. I feel like LinkedIn should let you make a commercial where you just expand
Ah.
that. I want you to sit back for a second. I have one more video to show you this evening. Let me know what a person should do with this.
LinkedIn is pretty great for discussing the latest ideas. We cannot stop your brother-in-law from discussing his ideas.
I call it the swimming desk. It's work up here, and swim down there.
We can help you explore new roles. We cannot help if the patients still don't know the row closest in the back. Yikes. And while we can't stop what's growing in the office fridge, LinkedIn can help you grow in your career. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
I love that. I kind of like the idea of the swimming desk, honestly, but
Until it falls in the water, man.
yeah, no, until you get electrocuted. But yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, listen, I think LinkedIn is really kind of in the zeitgeist right now. I'm not just saying that because I work here, but I think you see a lot of people who recognize that some other social media sites feel a little bit um, past their prime, and it feels like LinkedIn's on the ascent. I feel comfortable saying that, even as an employee here, and they are paying me, but that's how I honestly feel.
Nice. Even though they are paying you. And
Yeah.
we're going into some questions that I have. People generally want to know. People are always saying, like I said, the algorithm is a secret. So it's not, people aren't really going to get the algorithm. People are mad at the algorithm, which is amazing to me. The reason, like how mad people get at LinkedIn. Let's start with what makes a good LinkedIn post. I'm pulling up your site right now, your LinkedIn page. But what makes
Oh,
a good
yeah.
LinkedIn post?
Yeah, so I think I'm just going to give you my perspective as an editor here and someone who reads a lot of these every day. And I want to say one of the things that I think really differentiates LinkedIn news from anywhere else is yes, we blurb the news and we're a good site to go if you want an idea of business headlines, just the kind of like overview, what's important today. You are going to find all of that, and that is great. But I think what differentiates us is the perspectives provided by people like you. So people who post about the news, who have interesting things to say about it. When I read one of our stories and then I go down to see everything that's linked underneath it, that's really to me the differentiator. So I guess to me, a good post kind of maybe touches on one of four areas. One is expertise. This is kind of obvious, but if you're a banker and there's some big banking news and you have firsthand experience with it and you can explain something in layman's terms, I think you do this tremendously well. I'm not just saying that because you're having me on your show right now. But one of the things I enjoy about your post is how you can take complicated subject matters and put them into English, for people to read because you have expertise in a lot of these financial areas. So that's one thing, expertise. The next would be insight, and that's a little different from expertise in that you don't have to be the banker, but maybe you're somebody who works in a connected industry or somebody who has dealt with a similar problem in their job or issue or whatever it is, and you can take your experience and your insight and apply that to what we're writing about. So if you're insightful, if you have expertise, those are two obvious ways to connect with a post, something that you want to maybe see featured or you hope to have featured in LinkedIn news. I think after that, if you have a personal connection to something or a passion about it, when I was a sports columnist and I wrote columns for the Boston Herald, for WEEI.com, for NBC Sports, my first question anytime I started writing something was, what's my hook? What makes this interesting? And passion certainly works. If you're passionate about a topic, even if you're not a quote unquote expert on it, that's okay. We love opinions that feel lived and personal and real. And so that's great. And along those lines, if you have a personal connection to something, we had a great post. It was a few months ago. It was a random story. It was about AOL was finally unplugging their dial-up service. Everyone for years, you dialed in, you heard the weird squawking, of the computer and everything. And a lot of us didn't even realize that business still existed. They pulled the plug on it. There are only like a few thousand people in the country who still used it. Well, a woman posted about she was from the woods of Oregon and dial-up was the only way people in her family could connect to the internet because there was no high-speed internet there. They couldn't afford Starlink or anything like that. Or wait, Starlink, did I say that right? Elon's Starlink, right? They couldn't afford satellite internet. And so it was really important to them that AOL still existed. And that's a personal experience. And it was really well written. And it's something that it never would have occurred to me. Right. And so those are the kind of things that I think resonate. Now, you can't force it. You can't if you have no experience with AOL dial-up, you can't make it up. You can't try to force it. But so this is a very long-winded answer. I apologize. But I think the last thing I would say coming out of this is pick your spots. You don't have to weigh in on everything. Pick the things that matter to you, that resonate with you, that you feel you have. Like I said, in writing a column, what's my hook? If you feel like you have a good hook, weigh in.
Those are great 4 points right there as well. And I noticed what you didn't say was AI. How are y'all feeling about AI over there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I work for a tech company. We have Copilot. We have AI tools. Like, I mean, I would never tell people don't use AI. Use AI to, organize your thoughts. Use it to write a draft if you want. What I would encourage, though, is whatever your final product is, make sure it sounds like you, because a lot of the AI tools sound the same. And you may think this reads really well from ChatGPT. Well, guess what? Everyone else who writes with ChatGPT, it's going to kind of sound the same. So I would encourage people, use the AI tools. They're valuable. If that's part of your writing process, just be comfortable with whatever you produce, whatever you finish, whatever you put your name on. Read it and make sure it sounds like you.
Okay, got you. Okay, so another shift with LinkedIn. Like I said, I'm asking questions that poor friend. Sometimes we make posts on LinkedIn. You can make the exact same post. So with a post, even in like the structure format, I went down a LinkedIn rabbit hole. So you got like you said, what's the hook? What's going to get the reader to dig deeper into what you're talking about? Obviously, you have to have some expertise in what you're talking about or relate to the subject. But what I've seen lately is or at some point, you can create a post. I've seen people pretty much do the same post and get totally different results in their impressions, and they're on LinkedIn complaining about it. That's the only reason I know. Like, what jumps out from one post to another? How are these posts getting impressions?
Yeah, so I wish I had an answer to that. And short answer is I don't. I don't understand what hits and what doesn't as much as anyone else. There are things that's just way beyond my pay grade, unfortunately. I do know that we as editors, we really do search for good posts. So if we are writing a story, about Meta's latest investment in a data center or whatever, and say it's in a particular, maybe they're building something in Tulsa, like we will not just do a cursory search. We will try to find, posts from Tulsa so this is my way of saying, if you write something good, at least from the LinkedIn news perspective, we will do our best to find it.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't want you, like we said earlier, you're not going to give away the algorithm. No, LinkedIn's not even giving away the algorithm. Microsoft's keeping that under lock and key.
I have your
Yeah,
guess.
I wasn't trying to just ban on that. I just was trying to figure out like maybe there was a difference between one type of post versus another type of post.
Yeah, I don't have a good handle on that, honestly. I know. I mean, I've seen the complaint. We've all seen people wondering why. Oh, why didn't this hit? Because I wrote something similar earlier and it did. And I wish I had an answer, but I don't.
Perfect. Yeah, and personally, LinkedIn is pretty much my only social. LinkedIn, I do the YouTube channel for anyone who's listening to YouTube. We have the Main Street Meets Wall Street podcast, but I think LinkedIn is so powerful. Let me tell you some of the reasons why I think LinkedIn is so powerful. Then you can expand on why you think LinkedIn, how it helps folks. One thing is that it connects you directly with people, right? So you can you'll be surprised who you can connect with on LinkedIn. Like you said, direct message and you're having a conversation. We connected on LinkedIn. Now we're sitting here having this conversation. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool. I think if you're an executive or if you own a business, you should probably be talking to the other business owner. Or as opposed, you're reaching into those other levels with assistance. LinkedIn can connect you straight with that business owner. What are you seeing as some of the differences between LinkedIn and these other social media platforms right now? X was big, Meta was big. What are you seeing that's pushing LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I would say the thing that has jumped out to me, being very active on the site now, is how you don't have a bad conversation on LinkedIn. When I was on Twitter and I was a Red Sox writer, I mean, just the amount of vitriol, and people would say, how can you tolerate that? I'm like, yeah, it's just noise. I don't care. But here, the number of times I've had an interaction that was, disrespectful, it's one or two. I mean, anytime, and even people will occasionally reach out and say, "Hey," like I had a great interaction with a guy who was an expert in immigration law, and when a lot of the stuff was coming down at the beginning of this presidential administration, and we were trying to write about H-1B visas and all of that stuff, I got some wording that I thought was right, And an immigration expert reached out to me, a guy who kind of like does pro bono work, I want to say in Miami, in that area. And he very patiently explained, while citing, the various parts of the statute, why this one particular word I used wasn't accurate. And I, I mean, I'm no expert on this stuff, but I pushed back just a little because I was like, well, wait, this is how the Wall Street Journal framed it, and it feels to me like it is accurate. He said, I see why you said. Anyway, we had this long, respectful back and forth. And by the end of it, I realized I was definitely 100% wrong. And now, more to the point, I understand why I was wrong. And so I changed it and I let other editors know, oh, if this issue comes up, and I wish I could remember the exact thing, but it was related to the visa program. And the whole point is that is not a conversation I was having on Twitter. That's not a conversation I was having on Facebook. That is a conversation that you can have on LinkedIn. And that made me a better journalist, and it gave me more insight, there's that word, via his expertise into a subject that when that day started, that was something I just didn't know.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I do agree with the level of visceral that you get on Facebook and X, just other places, Reddit, perhaps. I don't think I've ever even been on Reddit, and that's nothing against those sites. I really dig into like LinkedIn. So like you said, I can have higher level conversations. Not to say that anyone else is dragging knuckles, but these are conversations where we're not arguing, we're not using profanity at one another. We're just talking. Well, we can disagree. You can point out what my differences and your differences, and we can explain it. People, what is a day in the life of a LinkedIn editor like?
Yeah, I mean, so we are on top of the news from start to finish. We're constantly scanning Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, CNBC, the information. I mean, you go down the list just to make sure we're always looking at it from the lens of what will resonate with our readers. We obviously it's going to be business centric stuff. At times it will be cultural stuff. And just the idea is we're always looking at it. If I were a reader, what would I want to read? And so, then from there, the mechanics of it are kind of what I was explaining earlier. We really do search. We want the good takes from people that help illuminate our stories and help, like I said before, differentiate our coverage. So that's the main thing.
Perfect. And how much in your daily day life, like when you're searching, how much are you using AI to scan, and how much are you like actually looking yourself?
Yeah, there's a mix. I mean, without getting too specific about behind the scenes stuff, since it's not really my place to talk about that, we use all tools at our disposal to find stuff. But, there's certainly still a place for sure for the human eye and the human sort of like, hey, I think this story would really hit.
Got you. Yeah, that's good. That's a good explanation. And you have folks, so people usually think of LinkedIn and they think, oh, that's the place where you upload resumes. What's different now? Why is that not the place you upload resumes?
Yeah, I mean, you should still upload resumes, but but it's sort of like you were saying, it's really a place to connect with people, and you'd be surprised at how many people you can engage with. I found that people have been very responsive to just, hey, I have a question about this particular topic. People are willing to help. I think that's like, especially in an economy right now where even though the jobs numbers have been kind of surprisingly encouraging. It doesn't feel like a lot of people's lived experience at the moment. And I think LinkedIn is a valuable resource for people who are looking for new work or have just been laid off or even just on the opposite end want to help people who are in that situation. I think it's a really valuable resource. A friend of mine just got hired at a high level job and the whole interaction started on LinkedIn. So I think that those stories are common.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get a job with a resume nowadays. Like, not that you shouldn't upload resumes, but they're scanned by AI. You need the personal connection. People don't realize like those big executive jobs, those guys aren't filling out applications. They're meeting people and they already know the people who are, making these things happen as far as it goes. Man, John, I've talked to you forever about just LinkedIn. I'm trying to think of another question. What are questions you get on LinkedIn? I imagine you get people who are mad at you. Like people think what do people give you too much power for, like that you can control on LinkedIn and not enough credit for what you actually do control on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, certainly people wonder why their posts, oh, why didn't this? And I'm like, listen, that is beyond me. I am a small, tiny, teeny tiny cog in a machine. But actually, most people have been respectful. Occasionally, I will get feedback that's almost in the sports vein, where it's like, um, if it's a particular company that people feel strongly about and you've written something with a sort of negative headline, you will definitely get fans of that company. I'm not going to name any names, but they might they might make their displeasure known. Who are you? How dare you? Kind of thing. But that to me, I'm like, that's sort of my, I don't want to say my happy place, but that's what that's what I dealt with for so many years in sports. So I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, you're probably like, this is nothing. What are y'all doing? Like,
Yeah.
I've been in locker rooms after teams have won championships and after teams have lost championships.
I've been screamed at by players and managers. I've yelled back at them. But trust me, there's nothing you can say that I haven't heard.
Oh, you gotta give us one story, man, before we hop off about. Give us one of those.
All right, let me think of. So, all right, so there was one. This one happened on camera, so I can say it. So I was in well, maybe I won't name the player, but I was in the Patriots locker room after a game, and a player who is one of my all-time favorites, like one of the best guys I have ever covered. He was mad at something I had written, and so I asked him a question after the game, but I didn't know he had even seen it, I didn't even know it was something he would be mad at. And he said, "I'm not answering any questions from Tomase. He's a bad guy." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
A bad
And he
guy.
said, "I am not answering questions from you. You're a bad guy." And I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking." I thought he was joking. He was not joking. So afterwards, I said, "You just got to let me know. What did I do? I honestly have no idea what he did." And he goes to his locker and he pulls out a copy of the Boston Herald, the paper I was writing for at the time, and he has a paragraph circled. And this is going to be a little bit in the weeds of journalism, but the paragraph was, it was the Patriots who were playing the Cowboys, and I have to have a story written at halftime of that game because of our deadlines. And my halftime story was about how this particular player hadn't played well, and if he didn't play better, then Dallas Clark and the Indianapolis Colts were going to eat his lunch the next week, kind of thing. The thing was, that paragraph only went out to like Western Massachusetts. How anyone got a copy of it, I have no idea. Because by the second half, this player had played so well that I ripped up that story and threw it away. This is just the hazards of writing for a newspaper with deadlines. You have to file at halftime. This is what I saw at halftime. Well, by the end of the game, the story was completely changed. So I didn't even write. So anyway, I had to tell him, that's not even what I ended up writing. That's not the story that 99% of the readers saw. I don't know how you got this story from Chicopee. That's a Western Mass town. But you somehow found it. And anyway, we hashed it out and it was fine. And I could call him today. And he's a well-known player. You would know him. And he's one of my favorite people ever. But that was the kind of thing you dealt with in a locker room.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And I don't even really want you to expand on this next question too much. I think I may know the player. I don't know if I know the player. I probably don't.
You can ask me off the air.
Yeah. But so just as far as, and I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. There's recently, you have the Patriots, you have reporting. We just had the trade with AJ Brown, who went to the Patriots. That's been reported for months.
Yep.
Vrabel, Rusi, whatever. I don't really want to get into that. But how like deep do reporters go for sources? Like, if it's a male, whatever. Like, how intertwined is it? You just said you could text this player if you wanted to talk to him. Like, where's the line with that?
Yeah, I mean, a source is whoever you can convince to talk to you, So, it could be an executive with the team, it could be a player, it can be an agent, it could be a family member, it could be someone who works in a lower level for the team, it could be somebody who works on the grounds crew. I mean, it can really be it's as deep as you can get, And so it's kind of like whoever trusts you. But the AJ Brown thing, that one was so obvious from the beginning because he had the history with Vrabel playing for him in Tennessee. There were no other teams linked to him at all. He wanted out of Philly. The Eagles wanted to get rid of him. They drafted his replacement. They signed his replacement. He was clearly gone, and they couldn't trade him until June 1st because of the salary cap hit that they were going to take. So everyone knew that this deal was going to happen once that deadline. I think it might have been June 3rd. I think it was June 1st. Anyway, it started June. So that deal, that wasn't a particularly tough one. That was pretty much everybody who covered both teams knew that deal was going to happen.
Got you. Do you think it hurts the integrity of sports reporting?
To know that deal was coming?
Just
Or
in general, just the light has been shown on where people are talking about like now as to how you get sources when people do sources. Well, I know like I've heard Stephen A. Smith speak before about like how he would speak with Allen Iverson. You know what I mean? Like I imagine that relationship is just as deep. Do you think it's tarnished the
No,
image?
I don't think so. I think that's the job. I mean, your job is to get to know people as long as you're not doing anything illegal or doing favors for them or anything like that. I mean, readers read you to find out information about their teams. So as long as you're doing it in a professional way, no, I don't think it's Stephen A. If you know Allen Iverson, I'm good for you. That's a huge get if you're covering the Sixers or whatever, you know? So, yeah, I don't think there's any issues with that at all. The Diana Rossini thing, unfortunately, was a little different with Mike Vrabel. But, you know, I think the consequences there have been pretty clear, at least on one side.
On one side? Yeah, you got that part right. I'm grateful for your time. We're gonna wrap it up here in just a second. I want to ask you what's the question you receive the most on LinkedIn as a LinkedIn editor?
Oh, interesting. Oh, actually, that's an easy one. Can you include this post with your story? You know, I get that question all the time.
Very good. If people tell us where we're going with the LinkedIn sports editor, the new role they're going with sports, is LinkedIn going to have a live show? Why do they not have anything streaming? I know we have like this is streaming live, but are y'all coming with some live TV?
That I have no idea. That's beyond me. So I got nothing there.
What do you have with what you got with the sports part? How are you
Yeah, so I
going that?
mean, we'll you know, we're gonna keep pumping out as many stories as we can. We've obviously got the World Cup coming up, and that's gonna be a huge one for us because there's so many business angles to that. So yeah, if you've got ideas for sports stories, feel free to send them my way.
Very good, very good. And I think that probably about covers it for today. I mean, it's been a great conversation, man. I've enjoyed your time. I've enjoyed you taking the time to chat with me. Before we go, don't worry, there is one more thing we can watch. One more time, please.
Back to Folk. Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are...
Direct snap to Brady. Standing in there. Looks to the left, loses the football. It's on the ground, and let's see if it's a fumble or a pass attempt. I believe it's going to be called.
It's a fumble. Where were you, John, when when Boston hit that home run to beat the Yankees that started the dynasty?
Oh, so when they came back from the 3-0 deficit, I was
Yeah.
at all the I mean, I was in Yankee Stadium. So yeah, I was right there covering the action. I had also been there a year earlier when Aaron Boone took Tim Wakefield deep. So, you know, I will say just one final thing. As a
That's what he was doing.
sports fan, as a sports writer, you kind of lose the fan part of it. Like you cannot be a fan of the teams you cover. Like I stopped being a Red Sox fan the second I started covering them. The only exception I made, and I will leave you with this, was the Red Sox won the World Series in '04 in St. Louis. And at the end of it all, they were all celebrating on the field. It was probably 2 a.m. And I saw one of the executives of the team who I'd known for a long time. He was a New England kid like me. He was my age, went to a very similar college. And I just stuck out my hand. I said, congratulations. And he swatted my hand away and he said, bleep that. Just for 1 second, be a fan. And then I was like, all right, it's fine. I will let down the journalistic objectivity just for 1 minute here because you did end the curse.
Nice. John, I'm going to let you have the final word before we go. I want you to answer 3 questions. You only get one word per question, okay? So first one is, well, you can have more than one word, but one team. First one is the best team in Boston.
Best team in terms of like just right now?
Nope.
Well,
Best team ever. So Celtics over Bruins, over Patriots, over Red Sox.
Celtics guy for all time.
So you're counting those 13 world championships they won when there were like 4 NBA teams. All right, that's cool. Second question.
Hey, they've won 5 since. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess they have. Yeah, they won in the 80s and the 90s and like the late 70s.
Years
I'll
ago.
give you that.
Yeah, and the 70s. I didn't
Yeah, the
even
late 70s, the Dave Cowens teams.
Yeah.
Who wins the NBA Finals and how many games?
I'm going to go Spurs in 7. I think that Wemby has come alive. He's the best player on the floor. And there was a little bit, if you remember when Giannis won, I think he lost the first 2 games of that finals, but he was the best player on either team. And eventually he kind of exerted his will. I think that's what's going to happen here.
Okay, so I'm putting a bonus question here. I'm sorry, John. Best tournament for championship in sports, like NCAA, March Madness, NFL playoffs. What's the best tournament?
It's probably either the NCAA. It's probably the NCAA tournament. I mean, from start to finish. And I'm not even a big college guy anymore, but the NCAA tournament's amazing,
Yeah,
especially the early rounds. I mean, the early rounds, it's the one tournament where the early rounds are better than the finals typically. But you really can't beat that first weekend of March Madness.
perfect. Yeah, the first weekend's good. And then who wins tonight? Like we said, we got to let people watch the game. Who wins tonight and who wins the series, Hurricanes or Knights? And this is important.
Yep, Carolina for both. I think Carolina wins, and I hope it goes 7. I think they were the better team during the year. They've been a little unlucky. They had 2 goals bounce off their goalie. Like, one got deflected by his own defenseman, the other weird one off the backboards. I think Carolina is the stronger team, so I'm going to go Hurricanes, and I'm not just saying that because I'm with a Hurricane fan.
And that's the final word. That works for me, man. Thank you, John, for coming down. We really appreciate your time. We'll have to do this again, man. And if there's any way I can help you with your platform, like I said, I am a huge advocate for LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn advisor, for those who don't know. John's LinkedIn sports editor. Thanks, LinkedIn. Thanks, YouTube. Thanks, John, for joining us.
You got it. It's fun, Marcus.
Thanks.